I found out my brother was sleeping with my wife the same night he tried to convince me I was imagining things. And the worst part? By the time I realized the truth, they had already taken almost everything from me. I'm writing this because I honestly don't know if I handled it the right way. Some people say I went too far. Others say they deserved it. All I know is that the two people I trusted the most managed to destroy 10 years of my life in a matter of weeks. So here's what happened. I'm 34 now. My brother Jake is 32. Growing up we were close. Not the kind of brothers who fought constantly, we actually had each other's backs. When our dad left, Jake was the only person I felt understood what it was like. When I met my wife, Laura, Jake was one of the first people I introduced her to. And that's where the story probably should have ended. Laura and I met when we were both 25. She was funny, confident, the type of person who could walk into a room and instantly be the center of attention. I wasn't that kind of guy, but she always said she liked that I was calm and stable. We got married 3 years later. For a long time everything felt normal. We bought a small house together. I worked in logistics for a shipping company and she worked in marketing. Nothing glamorous, but we were comfortable. Jake started coming over a lot after his last breakup. At the time I thought he just needed support. He'd show up with beer, sit in the living room, watch games with me, sometimes stay for dinner. Laura and him got along really well. Too well, apparently. But at the time I didn't think anything about it. If anything, I thought it was a good thing. My wife and my brother getting along meant family dinners weren't awkward. Sometimes they'd joke around and tease each other while I cooked. Looking back now, there were probably signs. Little ones. Laura suddenly caring a lot more about how she looked when Jake came over. Jake texting her memes sometimes instead of sending them to me. The two of them laughing about things I wasn't part of. But when you trust people, your brain automatically explains things away. You don't jump to betrayal. About 6 months ago things started to feel off. Laura became distant. She started staying late at work more often. When I asked about it she'd say they were preparing some big campaign. Jake also started acting strange. He stopped coming over as often. When he did, he seemed tense around me. Like he was constantly checking my reactions to things. One night we were sitting in the garage drinking beer when I casually mentioned Laura had been working late a lot. Jake froze for a second. Then he laughed and said something like, "Man, marketing people always work crazy hours." It sounded normal. But the way he avoided eye contact stuck in my mind. That was the first time I felt something in my gut telling me something wasn't right. I ignored it. Because the alternative was too insane to even consider. My brother wouldn't do that to me. My wife wouldn't do that to me. Right? Then one night I came home earlier than usual. And that's when everything started to unravel. Laura's car was in the driveway. Jake's truck was parked on the street. At first I didn't think anything of it. I figured maybe he had stopped by. But when I walked into the house something felt wrong immediately. The house was too quiet. And then I heard it. Laughter. From upstairs. Laura's voice. And Jake's. I remember standing at the bottom of the stairs trying to convince myself there was a normal explanation. Maybe they were watching something. Maybe they were talking. Maybe. Then I heard the bedroom door slam. And suddenly the silence felt a lot heavier. I slowly walked upstairs. Every step felt like my brain was screaming at me not to continue. When I reached the hallway, the bedroom door opened. Jake stepped out. Shirt half buttoned. Hair messy. And the moment he saw me, his face went completely pale. Behind him, Laura was sitting on the edge of the bed. Wrapped in our blanket. That moment is burned into my memory. Because nobody said anything for what felt like an entire minute. Finally Jake spoke. "Bro, it's not what you think." And the crazy part? For a split second, I almost believed him. But then Laura looked at me. And instead of guilt, she looked annoyed that I had come home early. That was the exact moment I realized my life had been a lie. But what I didn't know yet was that this betrayal was only the beginning. Because within the next 2 weeks, those two would take something from me that I didn't even realize I could lose. And that's when things got really ugly. I didn't scream. I didn't punch him. I didn't flip the bed like some movie. I just stood there, staring at my brother and my wife like my brain was trying to buffer reality. Jake kept whispering, "Bro, listen," like the right sentence could undo what I'd seen. Laura finally spoke, and I swear this is word for word. "Why are you home early?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Please." Not even a fake, "It's not what it looks like." Just, irritation. That snapped something in me. I asked Jake, "How long?" He looked down at the carpet like it had the answer written on it. Laura rolled her eyes and said, "Do we really have to do this right now?" I remember thinking, "Do what? A conversation about you sleeping with my brother in my bed?" I told Jake to get out. Now. Immediately. He took one step forward like he wanted to explain, and I pointed at the door. My voice came out calm in a way that scared even me. "Out. Before I do something I can't take back." Jake left. He didn't even argue. He just grabbed his shoes and walked past me without looking up. On the way out he muttered, "I never wanted to hurt you." Laura watched him go, then looked at me like I was the problem in the room. And that's when she switched tactics. First it was annoyance. Then it was tears. Like she had a button somewhere behind her eyes. "I was lonely," she said. "You're never here emotionally. Jake actually listens." I told her, "You could have said you were unhappy. You could have left. You could have done literally anything except this." She wiped her face and said, "It just happened." I laughed. I actually laughed, because the phrase, "it just happened," while she's wrapped in my blanket in my bedroom is insane. I told her we were done. I said I wanted her out of the house. That's when she stopped crying like someone cut the power. And she said, coldly, "You can't just kick me out." I didn't understand what she meant until the next day. That night, I slept on the couch. She slept upstairs like nothing happened. I didn't have the energy to fight. I was numb. At 6 a.m. I woke up to the sound of the front door. Her suitcase wheels. She didn't say goodbye. She just left. And for a moment, as stupid as it sounds, I felt relief. Like, okay, she's gone, I'll talk to a lawyer, we'll divorce, it'll be painful but it'll be straightforward. Then I checked my phone. I had 4 missed calls from my bank. And a fraud alert email. I opened my banking app. And my stomach dropped. Our joint savings account was basically empty. Not, a little lower. Empty. And then I saw another withdrawal. And another. And another. My hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I called the bank immediately. They told me the transfers were authorized using my credentials, username, password, security questions. Which made no sense because I didn't authorize anything. Then the woman said something that made my blood go cold. "The transfers were made from your home IP address. From my house. From my computer." While I was downstairs on the couch. I ran upstairs. My office was a mess. My laptop was open. Emails pulled up. Bank tab still in the browser history. She hadn't just cheated. She'd planned. I called Laura. Straight to voicemail. I called Jake. Straight to voicemail. I called again. And again. Then Jake finally texted me. "Can we talk later? This is complicated." That's when I knew it wasn't just Laura doing this. I drove to Jake's place like an idiot, still thinking maybe there's some misunderstanding. His truck wasn't there. I drove to Laura's best friend's place, because I didn't know where else she'd go. Her friend opened the door and immediately looked nervous. She said, "Laura told me you two had a fight and you scared her." I felt my face go hot. That sentence didn't sound like Laura, it sounded like a story Laura created to cover herself. I asked, "Where is she?" Her friend hesitated, then said, "I don't think I should get involved." I went back home and started making calls, bank, credit cards, mortgage company, even my payroll because my direct deposit was linked to that same joint account. It got worse. Somehow, she had also changed the password to our shared email, the one tied to everything. And then I got the notification that made my knees go weak. A login attempt to my retirement account. I locked everything down as fast as I could. I spent hours on the phone freezing accounts, filing disputes, changing passwords, setting up 2-factor authentication on anything that would let me. By the time I finished, it felt like I'd been in a car crash and just crawled out of the wreckage. Then around 9 p.m. I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was from a lawyer. It said Laura was filing for divorce. And included a temporary separation agreement she wanted me to sign. I opened it and felt like I couldn't breathe. She wanted the house. She wanted half my retirement. She wanted spousal support. And the part that made me see red? She claimed I had been emotionally abusive, controlling, and that she had reason to fear for her safety. I sat there staring at those words. Because it wasn't enough that she destroyed me. She wanted to rewrite the story so she was the victim. So if anyone asked, she wouldn't be the woman who cheated with her husband's brother and drained their savings. She'd be the brave woman escaping a monster. I finally got a call back from Jake late that night. He sounded like he'd been drinking. He said, "Man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I asked him, "Did you help her take the money?" Silence. Then he said, "It's not like that. She needed it. She's starting over." I said, "With my money." He tried to justify it. He actually said, "You'll be fine. You're the stable one." That sentence will haunt me forever. Because it made me realize how they saw me. Not as a brother. Not as a husband. As a resource. As a bank account. As a thing that exists to be used. I hung up and sat there in the dark for a long time. And that's when the anger finally showed up. Not blind rage. Something colder. Because if they were going to paint me as the villain anyway, then I needed to stop reacting like a shocked husband and start acting like someone who was being robbed in real time. That night I made two decisions. I wasn't signing a single thing without my own lawyer. I was going to document everything before they could erase it. And the next morning, I found something on my laptop history that proved this wasn't some mistake or emotional affair. It was a plan. A plan they'd been building for months. The next morning I opened my laptop again, this time looking through everything more carefully. Browser history. Saved documents. Email drafts. Anything that might explain how my entire life had fallen apart in less than 24 hours. At first it was just normal stuff. Work emails. Shopping sites. Random YouTube videos. Then I noticed something strange. Several searches that I definitely didn't make. How to move money from joint account before divorce. Can spouse take savings before filing divorce? Best states to file divorce for financial advantage. My stomach dropped. These searches weren't from the night before. Some of them were from 3 months ago. 3 months. Which meant that while we were having dinners, watching movies, planning a vacation, she and my brother were quietly planning how to destroy me. I kept digging. Then I found a saved PDF file. The name was something generic like notes. PDF, but when I opened it, I felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. It was a list. A literal step-by-step list. Move savings. Talk to divorce lawyer. Stay at Emily's house first. Jake truck parking, not driveway. They had even thought about where he should park so the neighbors wouldn't notice. I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. The betrayal somehow felt worse now than walking in on them in my bedroom. Because cheating can be impulsive. But this? This was calculated. And the worst part was at the bottom of the document. One last line. Make sure he thinks it's his fault. I actually laughed when I read that. Not because it was funny, because my brain couldn't process the level of manipulation. All those conversations about me not being emotionally available. All the guilt. All the time she acted like I was the problem. It wasn't real. It was preparation. I immediately copied everything. Screenshots, files, browser history, even timestamps. I sent them to a private email and backed them up on a USB drive. Then I called a lawyer. A real one. Not the one Laura hired. The consultation was that afternoon. The lawyer listened quietly while I explained everything, the cheating, the money transfers, the document I found. When I showed him the files, his eyebrows went up. And then he said something that made me feel the first tiny bit of hope since the nightmare started. Don't contact them again, he said. Let them keep thinking they're ahead. He explained that what Laura did with the money might not look good in court. Especially if it was proven that the withdrawal happened before filing for divorce and without mutual consent. But the thing that interested him the most wasn't the cheating. It was the planning document. Because according to him, that could completely destroy her claim that she was afraid of me. Which meant the story she was trying to build might collapse. When I left his office I still felt broken. But I didn't feel powerless anymore. Because for the first time since I walked into that bedroom, I realized something important. Laura and Jake thought they had already won. They thought they had taken my money. They thought they had taken my house. They thought they had taken my reputation. What they didn't realize was that in their rush to destroy me, they left behind enough evidence to expose everything. And once the truth came out, the fallout for them was going to be a lot worse than losing a marriage. Because the next thing my lawyer discovered about Jake turned this entire situation into something far bigger than just a divorce. 2 days after meeting with my lawyer, he called me early in the morning. His tone was different this time. More serious. He said, "I need to ask you something about your brother." That sentence alone made my stomach tighten. I told him to just say it. He explained that while reviewing the financial records we pulled from the bank, he noticed something strange about one of the transfers Laura made from our joint account. A large portion of the money didn't go to her. It went to Jake. Not as a simple transfer. It was labeled as a loan repayment. Which made absolutely no sense, because I had never borrowed money from my brother. Ever. My lawyer asked if Jake had any business, company, or financial situation that involved me. I told him no. Then he said something that completely changed the direction of the case. Apparently, a few months earlier, Jake had listed me as a co-signer on a private loan. My name. My information. My signature. Except I had never signed anything. Jake had forged it. At first I thought there had to be some mistake. Maybe identity theft. Maybe a bank error. But the more documents we requested, the worse it looked. The loan was real. The forged signature was real. And the money Laura transferred to him? It was being used to pay off that loan before it could come back to me. In other words, they weren't just cheating and stealing. They were covering up fraud. My lawyer leaned back in his chair and said something I'll never forget. Your divorce case just became the least of their problems. Over the next week everything started to unravel for them. My lawyer sent the evidence to the bank and the lender. The forged documents were reviewed. Investigators got involved. Suddenly Jake wasn't texting me anymore. Laura's lawyer stopped sending aggressive emails. And the story she tried to build about being afraid of me quietly disappeared from the paperwork. Because it's hard to play the victim when financial fraud is involved. The divorce is still in progress, but the money situation is already being corrected. Most of what she took is being frozen or returned through the investigation. Jake, well, he's dealing with his own legal nightmare now. I won't pretend I feel bad about it. The truth is, the two people I trusted most tried to destroy my life. They thought they were smarter than me. They thought they had planned everything perfectly. But the one thing they didn't plan for was leaving behind the proof. So yeah. My wife and my brother took almost everything from me. My marriage. My family. My trust. But in the end, they also handed me the evidence that destroyed their entire plan. And honestly, that's the only reason I'm able to sit here today and write this instead of wondering how my life got stolen without a fight. If this story shocked you, subscribe for real stories about betrayal, secrets, and courtroom karma. And watch the video on your screen. It's just as insane.